Still good. Still exist.
We are apparently live. Just going to make sure. Well, it says that we are. You know, we never seem to know. They don't give a proper indication of it.
No, it's just like.
I'm just going to refresh the YouTube page and make sure that we're up here.
Still waiting.
Looks like it's coming up. There it is. I need to turn off the sound on there. All right, we are live.
We are? I'm looking for
let's kick it off here, Dave.
It's live? Oh, yeah, no, this is live. Okay. This is liver than live. Hey, folks, I'm David Goldstein.
I am Brian Brinkman.
And who's the other guy?
I don't know.
Josh Carver. Hey, guys.
Josh Carver's with us.
Josh.
How you doing, Josh?
Tune into episode live deep dive number 6, the Beyond the Pond podcast. This is the podcast in which, generally speaking, we utilize the music of fish as a means of introducing a listener to other bands. These are usually not jam bands because you can get all that stuff on nugs.net. We trust you know how to use it. But sometimes fish fans get a bit myopic. Need to go beyond the pond, discover other bands in quarantine, let your fingers do the talking to Bandcamp, discover something else to listen to.
Yeah, we've figured out that the best way to help fish myopia is to spend like 45 minutes talking about fish.
Right.
So that is what we're here for. We're very excited. While I keep saying this, every time we count upwards, this is our 6th week of doing live episodes, which started after quarantine began. So I hope everyone out there hanging out, watching with us is doing well right now. I hope you two guys are doing well right now. I know that this is one of my parts of every week that I look forward to. For those of you who have hung out with us before or just joining us, the way we run through this, we picked a show. At this point, it is 11/14/1997 for this week from Salt Lake City, Utah. We're going to discuss that, talk a bit about the larger themes and ideas around this particular show, what was happening in the fish world at the time, kind of big themes that we can extract out of this show. And then we go into a couple different directions. And because we have our good friend Josh Carver, who can be found on Twitter at NOLA Socks with us, Josh is, along with us, part of the, I guess, young and budding Garcia Peoples fan club, if you will. I haven't been in a fan club since I was a teenager, but I'm definitely in the Garcia Peoples fan club. We're going to go through our favorite Garcia Peoples shows that have been played to this point in time, as well as share some new album recommendations that we want to push your way. If you're hanging out with us, say hey, ask a question, even like try to throw us off at some point, make a joke. Just hang with us here. This is a fun, laid back experience.
What do we get from being in the Garcia Peoples fan club?
Because
when I was a member of the Farmland Darius Jr. Mets fan club, I got to run the bases with Juan Samuel in 1992. I think I got a baseball card. I haven't got any of that from Garcia Peoples. Come on, guys.
If I got a vinyl of one of the shows I'm going to talk about here, I would be very, very happy. But that's vinyl production is slightly down right now and not an essential product.
No, it's definitely vinyl production is some would say it's non-essential. I don't know. Could be. It's up for debate. Anyway, some of the themes that we're going to talk about in this episode include space funk, as it is fall 1997. Fish in Utah, an oddly strong history, and favorite Garcia Peoples shows. This is usually the point of the podcast where I say, on that note, let's get to the fish. You'd hear a few bars of, like Twist, because we're going to talk about that. So, boom, 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 boom. All right, let's do a little discussion of the November 14, 1997 show.
Let's do it. And Josh, when we were talking originally about doing this show here, I think it was late last week, I threw you a couple shows of those. One of them was 11/14/1997, of which there is at least the entirety of the second set is on YouTube. It's a fantastic show, as we're gonna kind of review it here. Josh, why did you want to talk about this show? I guess that's a good place to start.
I actually think I wanted to talk about the show because it was one of the shows that I was least familiar with from the fall of '97, and it had a 4-song second set. So I knew it was '97, so I knew it was going to be a great show. It was a 4-song second set, so I knew it was going to be a strong second set. I think you threw out like a '98 show, which I'd actually been to in Worcester.
Yeah.
But that had a guest spot in the first set, which I didn't want to listen to again. And
which one was that? Worcester 98?
Last night of Worcester 98.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Okay. It's like a really big simple in there. I think like Possum goes into Wipeout, kind of picking up the jokes from two nights
that was
earlier.
the one I was not at. I was at the first two shows. Anyway.
Yeah, it was probably the weaker of the three. But this was just a show I wasn't as familiar with, and Wolfman's Piper Twist Slave, I wanted to hear it again.
It's a beautiful thing. There's a reason why, and we talked about this in a previous one of these live sessions. I think it was the one where we talked about the Gorge 98. There's something so special about a 4-song second set, all killer, no filler. It's kind of like the 5-song second set that I think many of you guys streamed last night from the Man Music Theater in Philadelphia, August 12th, 2015. But where we are at in fall 1997, this is the second night of the fall 97 tour. And I think one thing that's got to be noted here before we jump into this, well, first and foremost, this is only Phish's 5th performance ever in the state of Utah and only their 7th of all time. But also this notion of the second night of tour that we're talking about is something that most people in 3.0 don't necessarily consider those to be like high watermarks of the tour. And while there's a lot of greatness that follows this tour or this show, and there's probably a lot that properly puts this show in a certain tier below like 1 or 2, the fact that they play a show this good 2 nights into the tour tells you pretty much everything that you need to know about fall 97.
Yeah. I mean, they played a ton of shows in 1997 between Europe, between the summer tour. They were already pretty well oiled by this point. But yeah, this is a kind of show that if they just like drop this in like a random night in 3.0 and say like St. Louis, this would be, probably like a top 3 show of that given tour. And yet I won't call it mediocre, but it's definitely second or third tier for fall 1997, which, like you said, is kind of more of a testament to how good that tour was.
Right, exactly. So set 1 immediately kicks things off with some really brilliant jamming that would be commonplace throughout full shows in fall 97. Gumbo into Maze and Fast Enough for You, which they don't finish Maze. They just end up fading into Fast Enough for You, which is really wild. 2001 and Funky Bitch. You've got random songs all strung together, only really connected by jamming, which is the calling card for the entire tour. To end set 1, you've got Gaiudi, which Trey dedicates to Paul Languedoc, their sound guy, who loves songs with whistling. And Antelope then contains whistling because whenever Phish makes a joke, they have to incorporate them throughout the entire show. I feel like they're contractually obligated to do this. What did you guys think of this first set? What were kind of your impressions?
Fine. I'd be very happy to get this in 3.0. Again, not great for fall 1997 when you compare it to something like, I don't know, December 3rd, 1997, which is basically like a second set played in set 1, or
right.
It's the early part of the tour. But if I were to go out and hear this nowadays, I'd be perfectly happy with it.
Yeah, I think if you compare it to other first sets in the fall of 97, obviously it doesn't come close to some of the better second sets. But I mean, if they dropped like a 10-minute Gumbo and just, this kind of, into Maze, into Fast Enough for You, the 2001 is very strong. I mean, this is good. This is really good, strong playing. I mean, they already seem tight. they're listening to each other, and there's a lot of just space in the music. I mean, again, for fall of 97, it's not a first set you're going to return to, but it is certainly worth listening to.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, I think I'll mention something about this a little bit later, but the Vegas show I think is really underrated the night before this, and it kind of plays out in a set list standpoint like I don't know, something you would have expected from early summer tour or Europe or even 1996, in that it's like got a lot of songs in it, but the moments that they connect on are just brilliant. And I feel like you get that here, where the set list is kind of weird in this first set. It's not really what I would ever want to see on paper, but ultimately the band is delivering because they're having a really hard time not connecting through improvisation.
Yeah.
So set 2, let's jump into the meat of this here. What do we got for set 2?
Wolfman's Brother into Slow Build Piper, into Twist, into Slave. 4 songs. Probably, if you'd see this thing now set nowadays, you'd probably expect it to be something like 75, 80 minutes. It's like an hour, power hour set.
Yeah,
And
the
it's
only
great.
set I can really compare it to, not on a musical standpoint, but on a length standpoint, is Merriweather Post Night 1 in 2018. I think that they played like a 65-minute long set.
Oh God, yeah,
It's kind of like, huh?
That was a train wrecky show, right?
It's a very interesting show in that it begins with 6 or 7 brand new songs, and then they play this very short second set that, and then a long encore. I know a lot of people are
Oh yeah,
truthers for
that
that
it's
show.
really,
I am
really
not one of them.
no. Long on. The next night's good. That's when they do like Chocolate Torture, Bathtub Gin, like
Right.
tweezing in the first set, right? Yeah.
And this set isn't even 60 minutes long. I mean, Wolfman's, Twist, and Slave are each about 15 minutes, and Piper's 8. I mean, this is like probably a 55-minute set.
Yeah.
Right.
It
Yeah.
might be hard. It might be hard to find a shorter second set of Fish in like the modern era, other than when they were playing like 3 sets at Nectar's or something in the 80s.
That's a really good point, because like even 6 months later, when they play the Nassau show, which is also only 4 songs, Roses and Piper are 45 minutes combined.
Right.
Loving Cup is then like 7, and then Antelope is 14.
Like
so you're getting into 60-minute territory at that point in time. Yeah, it is kind of the strange thing about the 4-song second set is you're trading time for flow and jamming and like this really concise snapshot of the band, which I love. I want as much time as I can with those guys, but if you, after Slave, play like Susie Greenberg and then Character
Golgi,
Zero or whatever,
Character Zero.
Golgi, like it just, I'm not listening to that part at that point.
Like play shorter second sets, Fish.
Hey, I'll take a 4-song second set from Fish any day of the week. I don't want to name names, not like other jam bands playing 4-song second sets. People are like, oh my God, this band played a 4-song second set. I want to be
Isn't the
like,
new thing with some bands to play 1-song sets?
Yeah, 1-song sets, which is like 85 minutes of like Caucasian funk riffs.
So one thing I want to say about this is the twist, which I would say is the clear highlight of this set. I love the Wolfmans, but it does fall back on kind of like summer 97 funk jams that, oddly enough, and this may be a really controversial statement for all of our listeners out there, if I'm going to go to something in fall 97, I'm not necessarily going to funk first, even though that's what the tour is associated with. I want these ethereal jams. And one night earlier, they play this stash to open up the second set that kicks off the second set of the fall tour. Oh man. And that jam just like reaches for the heavens. And this reminds me of, there's a couple other really great jams from the tour. The November 16th Timber, the November 17th Johnny Be Good, November 21st Ghost, November 22nd Haley's, November 29th, like parts of the massive Runaway Jim, the Simple from December 2nd, the Bowie from December 3rd, the Tube from December 7th, and the Simple from December 9th that are all atypical. They're not relying on funk riffs. They're not relying on start stop jamming. Like, these jams are reaching for the heavens, and they're so blissful. And that's what you get out of this twist. It's almost like a preview of the version that we'd get from the Island tour just a couple months later. But man, this is the kind of jamming that just defines fall 97 to me, and that I want to hear all the time.
It actually sounds a lot like the Blissy portion of this kind of elevates the skies. It sounds like the old Benevento Russo duo song, Play Pause Stop. The title track off of that album, how it gets towards the end, it just like after you get like the funky part, it just starts to spiral upward, and almost like a Christian Venice's like ambience. It's really
yes,
that type of thing. Great album, by the way. I think that was the last official like Benevento Russo duo record, by far their best. Highly recommend it. Of course, those guys are in J-Rad. They're out there doing the thing, but they kind of missed the duo a little bit. But anyway, like as we were talking about this set, it's all killer, no filler, less than an hour. I think Phish should attempt to do this more. Their fans would appreciate it. You don't need to spin our wheels after you do the 4 songs at 6-minute versions of, Chalk Dust, Golgi, Zeros, Heavy Things, whatever the fuck. Just slay them and leave them wanting more.
Yeah, I mean, like you get those 4 songs. It plays like a complete suite of music. It's like a jam suite. It's under an hour long, but it kind of moves from one song to another very seamlessly. They're communicating a lot, and just if they had played something after The Slave, I mean, unless it was another, a song where they're just connecting with each other and taking it someplace interesting. But if they were to add, a Cavern or a Susie or a Loving Cup or something, I mean, to me, that would have taken away from the set as a whole. It would have just made the entire set less strong, even though we would have ended up with more Phish. They ended on a perfect note. I mean, what else would you do after that Slave? It's just they've made their musical statement. Everything flowed together, and that's it. It only lasted 55 minutes, but sometimes less is more, and I think very often it is with Phish.
And also, I mean, what this set is, because it's so early in the tour, I mean, you really do kind of if you go to your local sports bar and you order the sampler platter with the mozzarella sticks and the baked potatoes and the pizza and whatnot. I mean, this is a very fall 1997 style sampler platter of Phish, because you get the smooth wah-wah funk from the Wolfmans. There's an old school slow build Piper. We said the twist is like the shoegaze spiraling upward that would kind of become more prominent in stuff like the November 21st, 1997 AC/DC bag. And then, 16 minutes Slave is kind of longer and more elegant and more recent vintages. So it's kind of like the fall tour in bite-sized form.
It's interesting when I was looking at the set list, and I saw, it was like a 15 or 16 minute Slave, I was expecting, maybe some type 2 jamming or something more atypical. And it's not. It is just like the most deliberate, slow building Slave, that you'll hear. And it's great. And it's everything that you love about Slave, but longer.
Right. And it works very similar to Harry Hood in this setting, where when they start playing Slave, I mean, there was no way they were going into Hood out of that twist. Like, Slave was the perfect landing pad for them at that point in time. But it works like Hood in the sense that you're emotionally going on a journey, and that by the time they reach the peak of it, if they've put a lot into it musically, if they're being really patient, if they're being really communicative, you get to a point where you just feel like you've experienced something with everyone around you, with the band themselves. And Slave and Hood do that better than pretty much any other Phish song. And especially when they end a great set, it's such a special moment. I will say, just based on the length and Slave type 2 conversation, there is a type 2 Slave from fall 97. It's in Cleveland.
Right.
Forgotten show of the tour. There's a jammed out Slave and it's either before or after that they jammed out Julius. It's like a 17-minute Julius into like a 21-minute Slave to the Traffic Light, and both songs go completely off the rails in the Type 2 world. It's so wild.
The Type Tulius, as I like to call it. I don't think anybody else calls it that, but I call it that.
You and all of our buddies hanging out on Sunday will start calling it that.
That's a swinging Julius. That's like got some swing. Now we're just gonna do a quick discussion of Fish in the great state of Utah. So I think the first time they played there was August 21st of 1993, where Bela Fleck and the Flecktones jump on for set 2. I know they would certainly team up with Fish a few other times, probably most notably, I think, in like Nashville, 1994. Was it?
Yeah,
and Vanderbilt.
Acoustic Llama.
Oh, right, the acoustic electric llama. That was incredible.
And then isn't there a show from Europe, 97 summer tour with the Flecktones?
Yeah, I think they play like a 30-minute You Enjoy Myself together.
Yes. One of the few like good guests that Fish will have on the stage were the Flecktones. Like they would actually add something interesting to the band. Yeah,
I mean, the Flecktones are so unique in their durability and their ability to communicate with each other within improv that throwing them up there with Fish, they're kind of one of those guests that is not going to feel out of place in any sort of way.
I actually met the Flecktones in 1997. The first thing I asked Victor Wooten was, what was it like playing with Fish? He just said, those guys are great musicians. I'm going to be like, all right, here, sign my ticket stub.
I saw the entire Flecktones for the first time last year at Telluride, and it's one of the best concerts I've ever seen. There were so many moments where I was like terrified for the band on stage because of how much they were playing around each other and how complex what they were playing was. And then they'd land exactly what they were going for. And it's just such expert musicianship. It was incredible.
So that was that show from Utah. Also, they had a Mind Left Body Jam, the Bowie, which I think was the first since April 18th in 1992. Even songs like Fee and like the Hold Your Head Up Fish and stuff get the jamming treatments. That's definitely a show from August 93 we would highly recommend. More Utah next summer, June 9th, 1994. For Split Open and Melt and Mike's in set 2. And Mike's kind of goes to Tweezer Reprise Jam into a Simple Jam. And Simple had just been debuted a week earlier in very embryonic form. Was that at the Warfield?
Yeah, it was the Warfield shows that Mike's went into Simple, but Simple's like
it's nothing like you
2 minutes long, and it's literally just the riff. There's no jam at the end of it. There's no pausing. It's just I think it honestly they just keep repeating we've got it simple because we got a band.
What else do we got?
So next summer we got June 8th 95, the second night of the summer 1995 tour, which we're gonna have to do a summer 95 show during this series. That is my personal favorite Fish tour. Runaway Jim hints at what it will do in Raleigh a week later. It goes 30 minutes in Raleigh. I think it's only about 14 minutes here, but it definitely goes off into summer 95 space camp world. You've got a really big tweezer, their first big tweezer of summer 95, a summer that would see them play not one, but two 40-plus minute jams, one of them going 50 minutes. You've got a Reba from 95. Debates are across the internet, Fish internet of 94 or 95 Rebas. I don't think you can really go wrong either way, but I loved how they played that song in 1995. And then you get Caspian's debut show, which I'm sorry for all of you who have gotten, we've all gotten that second set Caspian. And I remember joking during the 8/22 2015 dinner and a movie, and many others joined in with this, that I was very disappointed when Caspian started out of Tweezer, and I've never been so happy to be so wrong and such a cynical jaded Fish fan.
When it went back into Tweezer, right?
That's another episode. Can we not just give Caspian its day? What do we got next? Josh, why don't you tell us what happened in 96?
All right, in '96, maybe the shortest summer tour ever. I think they played a very small handful of shows leading up to Clifford Ball, but that was the debut of Page's theremin. He played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which I think was the only song he like solo played on the theremin. I think occasionally he would play it in jams, including in Dick's 2011 Night 3, my one time at Dick's. And really good Possum in the '96 show with some cool melodic work from Trey. And then next show in Utah was the November 14th, /'97 show, which we've been talking about.
Then you jump to '98, and this is where some really special stuff happens. So 11/1/98 is a set listed show on fish.net. This is from the Dead Goat Saloon. Trey and Mike play an open mic set filled with inside jokes and rare songs, which will lead directly to 11/2/98, which is an amazing show, even before what I would say is probably the biggest prank that they've ever pulled on their fan base.
What, you mean encoring with a really bad version that Smells Like Teen Spirit?
If they learned the prank in a day, I think that they learned Smells Like Teen Spirit like in the encore break.
Yeah.
Just the way that they played it. But the show kicks off with like a 15-minute tube jam that goes into Drowned. And I think that goes into Jesus Just Loves Chicago then. And then you get a bunch of jokes midway through set one. Trey plays acoustic, Bittersweet Motel, and a couple other songs. And then set two opens with a really good Down with Disease. A bit later, you get a You Enjoy Myself. You're like, we're talking about short sets here. You're like 35, maybe 40 minutes into set two when Harpua starts. And Harpua goes into an entire performance of Dark Side of the Moon before wrapping up back in Harpua. Even if the Dark Side of the Moon is rough around the edges and, I think it isn't the coolest thing that they've ever done at this point in time. I think at the time it was insanely fun. It was very special, very perfectly executed considering the mood when they left Las Vegas at Halloween. I think it's one of the more special gags and pranks that they've ever played, both on their fan base from a music standpoint. I mean, who among us has gotten into Fish and didn't have their mind blown at one point in high school by Dark Side of the Moon or middle school, but also as like a prank on their fans for not following them from Vegas to Salt Lake.
I think they had to play Dark Side of the Moon for more of the realism factor because Jimmy's never made out to be the coolest kid. So if he was lying on his bed listening to metal or Adam Hartmother, I just wouldn't believe it. Dark Side.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. he's not sitting there listening like Final Cut. Oh. Anyway, I have one memory of that set was I saw the two show. They played 3 shows in Worcester that November, 27, 28, 29th. I was at the 27th and 28th, and my buddy driving to our hotel for the 27th. After the 27th show, he got very lost, and we had that Dark Side of the Moon set on. So I just remember being in the back of a car, stoned and kind of falling asleep, listening to this Dark Side of the Moon while he just drove through all the highways of Worcester. So it was special to me.
It's definitely one of those stories when I was first getting into Fish where someone told it to me, just being like, oh yeah, this is another show you have to get. This is another show. It's like, wait, what? They just played all of Dark Side of the Moon in the middle of a show? Like, what the fuck? That album, I mean, it was a formative album at a very important time for me, and hearing Fish play it was very special.
So the last time Fish has played Utah, aside from Mike Gordon Band and Tab side project stuff, was July 15th, 2003. It actually has a sound check with a very good Sense and Subtle Sounds, at a half hour. The video's on is in YouTube. Good first set, kind of like a good barbecue set with a great Week Apart groove. And then the second set, of course, is the big Mr. Completely. The only time they play Mr. Completely before playing it in 3.0. Lowrider, Big Black Furry Creature from Mars, Buried Alive, Ha Ha Ha. Wasn't there like Spread It Round at some point?
Spread
That's
Around
it.
comes out of Mr. Completely.
Right.
So they go back into Mr. Completely. So it's like 40 plus minutes. It feels like a blend of 2.0 jamming because the Mr. Completely initially is 30 minutes long. You know, listening to it, you forget that there's going to be this 10 minutes of wacky 1994 gimmickry tacked on to the backside of it.
It 2.0 is very hard.
Yeah. That was, they released, I think in the fall of 2003, they were experimenting with how do we get more people to buy live fish. And they released on CD 22803, 71503, and 72903, which are all three fantastic shows. And I remember going out to Rockin' Rudy's in Missoula, Montana, and buying this show and just being like, what the hell? I think the message here is that fish should probably return to Utah at some point.
2021.
Get out of Utah. Then we can get out of Utah. Anyone
God
out
Street
there?
Wine.
Yeah, it's right. God Street Wine. People of a certain age will definitely get that reference.
Deep Utah Blues.
Great song. Good band, God Street Wine. I wanted to blend the Steely Dan with the jam band. God Street Wine did it for you.
So before we jump into some other music we wanted to talk about, since we're talking about 1997, there's so much good fish in 1997. And, you know, you, dear listener, we assume that you have at least 4 or 5 times in your listening career done a full re-listen to 1997, as I have. If you have not, and if you're looking for just the best bits, we're going to give you each of our top 3 sets of fall 1997. Point being here that there's just so much good music that I think we even left like 4 or 5 other sets that could have gone on here off. And I will say I picked 3 sets originally that Josh and Dave picked. And the important thing to remember with fall 97 is I wasn't even disappointed because I was like, there's 3 other awesome sets I can go with. So Josh, being our guest, do you want to go with your top 3 sets and kind of reasons why?
Sure. The first one I chose was November 21st from Hampton, set 2. This actually could have been a 3-song second set. It's Ghost, Bag, Slave, and then Loving Cup. The middle part of the Ghost gets a little spacey and ambient, but then there's just some fantastic full band interplay in the second half of that jam. And it's just really interesting if you listen to this Ghost and then you think back to the Ghost from the summer, which were, you know, largely kind of the space funk and the cow funk. This is really, you know, Ghost is maturing just within, you know, the first 4 or 5 months that they've been playing this song. I mean, they debuted the song, I guess, back in June in Europe, and like they're taking it places that you wouldn't have even imagined they would take it just a few months later. The AC/DC Bag covers a ton of ground. It's really just kind of all over the place, gets pretty intense. And then just like the primary show we've been talking about today, 11:14, just another really great segue into Slave.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like this could be a 3-song second set because the Bag is 28 minutes, 29 minutes, Ghost is 15, Slave is another 10. You know, the Loving Cup kind of tacked on at the end feels a little superfluous to me, but you know, I mean, they were just fantastic show. The next pick of mine very much is because I was there. I only caught 2 shows in fall 97. The first show, the Hartford Civic Center. This was from November 26th. And just a fantastic second set. At least the first half of the set is fantastic. Begins with really one of the few jammed out character zeros. I think it's 20 or 25 minutes long. Into
very Hendrixy.
Another, oh yeah, very Hendrixy. Not, you know, again, fall 97 kind of, you think of it as, you know, the cow funk. That wasn't character zero.
Yeah.
It was like full on arena rock. I had seats on the floor, just a great view. This was great rocking fish. 2001 goes on for, I don't know, 10 or 12 minutes and then segues into cities. Like 2001, the second, builds of 2001, they just skip that and it segues right into Cities. And Cities was a really special song for me to hear. Talking Heads were my first favorite band. They just brought back Cities earlier in 97.
Yeah.
And then, so I saw Cities at the Great Went. First night, set 3, one of the best sets of Phish I've ever seen. And then
Fishman
this was the next,
sleeps.
Yes.
Sleeps
and then
in the
this was literally the next Phish show I saw. So I had never seen
cool.
Cities in however many dozen shows I had seen. And now I'm seeing Cities 2 Phish shows in a row. Just a fantastic, 45 minutes of Phish music. The fourth quarter lags a little bit with the Amar, Punch, and Caspian, kind of better fit into the first set. But again, I'd put the first 3 songs up there with basically anything that they played in the fall of 97. And then my last pick was December 6, 97 from Detroit. Can't really add much about the Tweezer Bella that everybody loves. But, you go, and I was just going back and listening to it, in the past couple of days, the intro, just where they're finding places to improvise and to kind of fuck around a little bit. The intro to Tweezer, I had totally forgotten. They're just kind of screwing around. And then there's this brief moment where it's almost like a possum build before they kind of kick into the actual Tweezer.
Oh my
Exactly.
God, yeah.
And so the Tweezer Bella twist Piper is fantastic. Interestingly, contrasting to the show we've been discussing, here it's twist Piper, not Piper twist. Yeah. And the twist is pretty short and straightforward, leading into more of an exploratory 15-minute Piper. Again, just as we've been discussing, you think of Fall 97 as kind of the cow funk, the space funk tour, but really the best parts of this tour, it's not that.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. It's when Trey would either try to impersonate Hendrix or when they were reaching for the heavens, that was where you got the best stuff for me from Fall 97. So this is perfect. I will jump in here. I'm going to share with our viewers our list once we've all gone here. But my first selection is 11/17, 1997, set 1 from McNichols Arena in Denver, Colorado. Josh, you're talking about that Ghost from Hampton, which is the next performance, the next version of Ghost after this. This Ghost is I probably have listened to this jam more than any other Phish jam. When I became a Phish fan, had 5 shows and none of them were from 1997. And I was reading the Phish book. Someone had given that to me, which is a really good read. I feel like every time I read through it, I learn something new about the band at this era, but it tracks the band throughout 1997 in the same way that Bittersweet Motel does. And I remember in that book, Trey talks about how they never used to listen to themselves off stage. And then they were listening to the Phoenix Gumbo from the summer and the Denver Ghost on the bus throughout the tour to basically be like, all right, we have to try to top this jam in the next show. But this Ghost is all over the place. It's at times really funky. At times it's total arena rock. Comparing this to 11/21, which I don't think Trey played a lead note on 11/21. It's just a chordal build that I love so much. To hear that song 2 shows apart is so wild. But you also get with 11/17 set 1, a Tweezer opener, another really cool Tweezer, a Reba, and a Ghost in a 5-song first set. My next pick is 12/7, 97 set 1. Well, 2 set 1s because I wanted to prove a point here. Set 1s from 1997 kicked ass. This has total magic in the first set. AC/DC Bag starts, is clearly going into a jam. So we're going to have a show opening AC/DC Bag jam. And then Trey discovers the riff to Psycho Killer, another Talking Heads song. Talking Heads are everywhere in Fish's mind following Remain in Light. And kind of the same way with like cities appearing so many different places throughout 97, Psycho Killer just perfectly drops in here. They don't know the bridge. They don't know anything other than like the first two verses and the chorus, but it doesn't matter. It kicks ass. You've got an It's Ice into Swept Away or Steep and Swept Away later. Back into It's Ice. It's a really cool segment. It feels like those three songs should like be married more often. And then Tube, which is the first Tube since I believe, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I believe 2/26/97, all the way back in Stuttgart, Germany, which is a really good show in and of itself. That then goes into a jam. They bring it back and they stop. And if you listen to the soundboard, you hear Trey go to Fishman and just go, "You want to start that jam back up again?" And pop, and they go into a big jam that goes into another slave. Great first set closing slave. So 12/6/97 set one. Both 11/17 and 12/6 are officially released shows. And then 12/12 set two. I think this is the overlooked kid brother to 11/26 and 12 set two. It's a little sloppy, but it's very jammy. Saw It Again jams. Piper, massive all caps. Swept Away steep. Caspian, huge Caspian jam. Isabella Tweezer reprise. It's one of those sets like pretty much everything else. I mean, everything else we've talked about here, 6 sets so far. With Dave's, it'll be 9 that you press play on and you never stop. So what do you got, Dave?
Just wanted to follow up on what Josh was saying about November 26, 1997. I too was on the floor at that show, and my previous show had also been The Great Went. And I think I said that character Zero, it sounds like he's teasing the Toady song Possum Kingdom, which is very, very big on the alt rock charts at the time. That guy, if you listen to the end of it, he's doing a bow, 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 bow. So I don't know. Again, I tried submitting that to like people. No one seems to appear but me, but I hear it, man. So let's see. The ones I picked: November 28, 1997, set 2, first out of Worcester. Sometimes I think it's still the best second set I've seen in person. I love that show. I mean, that goes Timber Ho, Limb by Limb, Slave to the Traffic Light right in the middle of the set, and then what's probably my favorite all-time version of Ghost, because you get the insanely funky stop-start funk, but it also becomes a rager going right into Johnny B. Good. It's just a set both relentless and excellent. I've got November 22, 1997, of course, from Hampton. Of course, officially released, different from November 21st, 1997, second set. You get the huge 20-minute, "Hey, Mike, stay on F," Haley's to kick things off. And then a master class in how to be smooth. You get a silky, funky tweezer, seamless segue into the silky funk of Black Eyed Katie. I mean, really goofy Caucasian guys from Vermont shouldn't be able to play funk like this. Fortunately, lots of bands now think it's their birthright to do so. I don't know. No, and then December 2nd, 1997, set 2 from Philadelphia. Arguably the John Fishin showcase to end all John Fishin showcases. I don't know how he grew 3 arms prior to sitting down for the show. Best version of Yamar to date. Just the Mike's groove, the Mike's like Dogface Boy, Yamar, We Could Park Groove. It's Mike's simple Dogface Boy, Yamar, We Could Park Groove. It's phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about John Fishin's performance in this set.
That might be my favorite set of all of 1997.
Yeah.
The more I listen to it, when they go into Dogface Boy, like I think is it out of the simple or out of the Yamar? I don't have it in front of me.
It's out of the simple.
Okay. Because Trey's basically playing around Dogface Boy. He's like in that key,
right,
and he's figuring out a way into it for like 2 solid minutes. And then when he finally starts singing it, there's usually not a lot of emotion attached to Fall 97 Fish. It's just kind of like rock your face off, but it's like one of those quieter, really contemplative parts of that.
Yeah, I saw December 3rd, which is a very, very good show. I mean, by any objective standard, it's an awesome show. But December 2nd's better.
Yeah.
A little bit.
All right. We wanted to do something fun here. We were talking a bit about, so this second set that we talked about here, Wolfman's, Piper, Twist, Slave. Under an hour, probably closer to 50 minutes at most, but it works, and it really works. And one of the kind of endless complaints that we've had here on this podcast, I feel like complaints is knocking it down a notch. Like, these are the issues that we have with
Constructive criticism.
Thank you.
A little bit controversial too, man.
Sometimes, man, we've gotten some hate mail for this.
Get under some skin.
It has. And, you would think like people want this type of constructive criticism, if you will, of Fish, but sometimes they just don't ruin my buzz, man, is what they say. We wanted to pick a couple Fish sets that we love. We genuinely love, but we think that they'd be slightly better, just a little bit edited down. I'm going to go with one of my favorite shows I've ever seen, which was September 1st, 2017. First night at Dick's, my first time at Dick's since 2012. First shows following the Baker's Dozen. So much energy, so many good vibes in the air. And they come out and they play a great first set, and then they come out for the second set and they play No Man in No Man's Land, 25 minutes. Carini, 22 minutes. Awesome jams out of both of these songs. Ghost, almost 20 minutes. Ghost starts fading out. They go into Harry Hood. At the time, I was like about to tweet that we're going to get a 4-song second set. Like, what are they going to play after Harry Hood? And they play Cavern, which I love Cavern. It's so much fun. The little dance, like when my wife and I got married, like we said I do, and then like on the loudspeaker, the boom came in, and we were like fist bumping. It was awesome. I love Cavern. Yeah, it's great.
I think I did know that. I just told me. I just forgot it.
I love Cavern, but why? 4 songs of No Man's, Carini, Ghost, Hood, and you're at 76 minutes. That's all you need. Walk off stage, play Cavern for the encore. I rest my case.
The show that I came up with for this one, and I eliminated way more than one song. So August 19th, 2012, Bill Graham Civic Center. The first 45 minutes of this show, I don't think you'd find a Fish fan who doesn't think that is up with the very best Fish of 3.0.
Oh, 1.0. I love that 45 minutes.
Yeah, it is peak Fish from any era. Cross-eyed into Light, into Sally, back-eyed and back into Cross-eyed. It is really, you cannot get a better, jam suite than that. And then they find themselves into Theme, which is a great landing pad. They played just really a fantastic free-flowing 45 minutes of music. And then you get Rocky Top, and then you get like a 5 or 6 minute boogie on,
right?
Meat Stick, and then you get Bug. Before a set closing, You Enjoy Myself. If you take out Rocky Top, Boogie On, Meat Stick, and Bug, and you just go straight from Theme into You Enjoy Myself, I think we'd be talking about August 19th, 2012, as one of the very best shows of 3.0 or of Fish ever. But you just throw in all this padding. And I love those songs. I'm happy to hear those songs in certain contexts. But, after just this fantastic jamming, it was just, it actually, to me, detracts from the show. The show is less good because of those 4 songs.
I would even go further and say, I think that show historically is less remembered than the Fuck Your Face show because of the fourth quarter. I think that like that show, if you do Theme and then Slave, or Theme and then You Enjoy Myself, whatever, like boom, done. That show, because the first set of that show kicks ass. And nobody ever talks about the first set of that show. The third quarter gets all the praise for all the right reasons. But to me, if that show ends with a huge statement, I don't think that people look at August 31st, 2012 as the and maybe like the turning point, but I think that they have 819 on the exact same level.
I've been listening to Fish for 28 years, and I still say that the segue in that show from Light into Sally could be my favorite segue ever. It's just nothing compares to the huge white light explosion of that light, and then slam into Sally. Just two B major songs, just perfect. I couched toward that show. It was like West Coast. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I jumped so high, I probably fucked up the downstairs neighbor's ceiling.
So what do you got, Dave?
I have a show that I had attended, front row actually, on November 29th, 1997, second set. This is, of course, with the Jim Symphony, 60-minute Runaway Jim. So this show should have gone 60-minute Runaway Jim, Strange Design, Harry Hood, drop the mic, leave, wipe the sweat off. After being at that show, after hearing the Hood, I'm like, all right, perfect. The set is already at like 75 minutes. This is great. And then they played Prince Caspian and Susie Greenberg. And I just thought, I'm exhausted. The audience is exhausted. They gained nothing by playing those two songs. Were you trying to do like a 2-hour set? That's stupid. You should have left after Harry Hood. I mean, I'm of the mind that parts of that Jim are kind of boring to begin with. But if you could have done a 3-song set ending, I mean, after Hood, there's nowhere else to go. There's no reason to play Caspian and Susie. And you just would have gotten to that awesome, like Buffalo Bill, Moby Dick, Fire encore that much faster.
Right.
So, anyway.
So the remaining part of the show where we want to, I know that there's been demand here yet. We got Brian Whitley here hanging out with us, Ryan Smith, two very big Garcia Peoples fans as well. We are going to get to our favorite Garcia Peoples shows. We wanted to tell you really quickly, this is the first time we're doing this, but hey, why not? About a fantastic company that we are currently working with, Harry's, which I shaved with today. Dave, what are your thoughts on Harry's?
I happen to like Harry's quite a bit. It's a really good product. They make a really good razor, really solid blades. If you order Harry's, you get the razor kit. Comes with your razor, comes with extra blades, it comes with the shave gel. And it's just an excellent, really good product. I mean, look at these lines.
Well, and especially with everything that's happening right now, we don't want you guys to have to leave the house unnecessarily. No. So I'm going to post a link here in the comments for a special offer for listeners of Beyond the Pond. If you go to harrys.com/BTP, you can redeem your Harry's trial set. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip, a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel with aloe to keep your skin hydrated, which I definitely need in the dry Colorado weather, and then a travel blade cover to keep your razor dry and easy to grab on the go. So I will go ahead and post this here in our comments. Please go to harrys.com/BTP to get your trial set delivered to you. And on that, let us jump into our favorite Garcia Peoples shows. So I think part of the reason we want to talk about this is the three of us have a message chain that's been going on for probably 3 years at this point, where we talk about a lot of fish, talk some beer, talk some dad life. But I would say the majority of the conversation is what is happening in the world of Garcia Peoples, who, if there's a lot of things I'm sad about in 2020, just with the whole state of the world. One of the things I'm saddest about is the second year leap that we were looking at from Garcia Peoples based on their fantastic 2019 is on pause right now. And my hope is when live music becomes a thing again, be it end of this year or fall 2021, whatever the realistic perspective is, that we get some fantastic music out of Garcia Peoples, because they are doing some really fantastic stuff musically, both in the studio as well as live, that we've all really enjoyed. So we wanted to talk about our favorite Garcia Peoples shows to recommend to you guys. All of these, I believe, are either on YouTube or on archive or re-listen. Is that correct? Are we able to direct people to these?
Yeah, I mean, the most of them are on Archive, eTree. Some are there's one or two on Bandcamp.
Oh yeah. They do have a couple on Bandcamp. So, Josh, as our guest, tell us what your favorite Garcia People shows are.
So I was picking last amongst the three of us. So I was actually about to pick the first show of the New Blue residency from October 3rd of last year, 2019, which was actually the one of the New Blue residency shows that I was able to get to. And my other pick was actually going to be March 10th, 2020, which was one of Dave's picks, which is just a fantastic show and a very high quality recording from Union Pool. But I'm instead going to go with February 15th, 2020. That was earlier this year. That was actually the last live show that I have seen, like, of any band before the pandemic. I was really lucky that, and my wife doesn't believe me, but we planned a trip to New York for President's Day weekend with the family. And it was after we planned the trip that I realized that it was the same weekend as Freaks Ball and that Garcia Peoples was playing Freaks Ball.
I wouldn't
swear.
believe you either.
So,
shout out to the NY Freaks list.
We got into New York, got some dinner, and then I left the family back at the Airbnb in Brooklyn, and I headed over to Belle's house. So it was overall, it was a fantastic evening of music, and Garcia Peoples played the late night show starting, I don't know, probably around 12:15 a.m. They had lights and visuals by Microdose, which just fits the band so well. This show is actually not available on Live Music Archive yet. Maybe it will be one day, but you can get the entire thing on YouTube, so you can get those great light show. And it was the longest of the, half dozen or so Garcia People shows that I've seen, the most well attended. There were still a couple hundred people in the audience, I feel like, when the show started, and there were still a number of people there, after 2 a.m. when they were wrapping up. And just an absolutely fantastic show. I feel like when I see Garcia Peoples, I feel like I'm seeing like the feel that the band gives me is what I imagine it would have been like to see the Dead in the 60s. Just the energy and the vibe. And that's really one of the reasons that I love the band. It's just this, I just can't describe it. And I can't really be terribly objective about the band, because I love what I hear from them, and I love everything about them right now. Anyways, it was just a great high energy show throughout. The band was, clearly vibing off of the late night crowd, and the crowd was very attentive. I actually noticed that during some of the earlier sets, during some of the other bands playing, there's just a lot of kind of chatter in the crowd and a lot of talking. And then Garcia Peoples hit, and just everybody was really focused. In terms of what they played this cover from this German krautrock band, which I had never heard before, Agitation Free. And the song is Leyla Part 2, which they also played back in 2019 on March 24th, 2019. It really almost sounds like an Allman Brothers song. It's an instrumental, dueling lead guitars, just a fantastic song that I don't think Garcia Peoples covers that often. There's a great 7 jam, which you also hear during the October 3rd, 2019 show. This one's almost twice as long. It's just, the jam is just this great groove that keeps building and building and building into the Freaks Ball show into World's Illusion, which is just a great classic Garcia Peoples song. And then also this show includes one of my favorite new tunes, which they also played on March 10th, 2020. It's either called This Place or Crown of Thought. I think at their official release of the Union Pool show, they call it Crown of Thought. So I guess that's what the band is calling it. just a fantastic multi-part song with, again, some great dueling leads. And then finally, like after the band had been playing for, 90 minutes already, they launch into close to a 30-minute long One Step Behind, which is really, their centerpiece song. There's so much that can be done in that song, and they will jam different parts of it and explore different parts of the song. There's the intro, there's the main part of the song, and then there's the outro jam. I think in this version, the outro jam is just fantastic. I think it's 6 or 7 minutes long. Just a fantastic version of that. Again, it's not on Live Music Archive, but it's up on YouTube. If you Google or search on YouTube for Garcia Peoples Freaks Ball, you'll find it. You'll see my back of my head bopping along to the entire show. And then I also just wanted to throw in May 17th, 2019. In addition to just Garcia Peoples, regular touring and the shows they've been doing, they've also been playing a bunch of these psychedelic sangha shows, which are basically these modern day acid trips, entirely improvised. And it's basically just, 3 separate long form improvs lasting from 40 to 45 minutes. And it's really this other side to the band that if you're just getting into them, or if you've just been listening to some of their, more, regular shows, I highly, highly recommend. Great late night listening. And to me, it really shows like the potential of the band and where they can go, where they can literally just get on stage and just, start playing away for 40 or 45 minutes, creating really interesting soundscapes. And again, like if you're looking for something to listen to at 1 o'clock in the morning, highly recommend that. And that show is in the past month or so is up on Live Music Archive.
That there's one of those from September as well, right? I'm blanking on the date. I think it's only on YouTube. It's an hour of improvisation. There's a guy like up front who is dancing harder than anyone I've ever seen. And there's just like crazy lights behind them. And there's
shirtless guy.
Yes. Yeah. That set I've watched, like whenever I go on YouTube on my TV, like that set pops up alongside like Bittersweet Motel. Dave, what do you got?
I have, I was fortunate. I mean, I live here in New York City, so I was fortunate to see Garcia Peoples or Garcia Peoples or Chris Forsyth about like 7 or 8 times last year. They did lots of awesome cross-pollination, lots of sets of New Blue. So I'm going to talk about one that I actually did not see. This was the last Garcia Peoples show for the foreseeable future, being the March 10th, 2020 show from Union Pool. It was a free show that was kind of supposed to be the triumphant kickoff to a big spring tour that was going to take them across the country to places they'd never been. Obviously, that's on the back burner for now. I remember I didn't go to this show. I think I was already in social distancing mode at that point. I thought like, I don't know if I want to go to like a crowded concert in the middle of March. But what's cool about this show is that it's available on Bandcamp, actually. I think it's only like $5. Whatever price you pay for it, it sounds great. It's a really good recording. I think it was recorded by Eric Pierce Hocking, who does, he's part of the NYC Taper crew. Got a really good recording. Union Pool's not that big. It's a good show because you get like some classic Garcia jams, Garcia People jams, like Feels So Great. It's really excellent at that show, but it's also a preview of a bunch of new great songs that are allegedly going to be on the next record coming out in the fall, like the aforementioned Crown of Thought, which is a great song. They have a song called Terry. It's really good. Deep Sea Dog, another really good new song. This show actually doesn't include One Step Behind, but there's plenty of excellent versions of that song out, including they did a digital release of the October 10, 2019 show for New Blue.
So good.
And on cassette.
Right, on cassette. Digital and on cassette. Not on vinyl. I'd buy it on vinyl. But they do like a 50-minute version of that song. It's just really out of this world. So definitely check that out. And also go to their Bandcamp and get the March 10, 2020 show. It's kind of well jammed out, but a good primer of both like forthcoming and classic Garcia Peoples.
So I apologize, but I don't at the same time. I picked two shows from 2019. March 29th, 2019, which was one of the biggest concerts of the year in this little corner of the world, as well as October 3rd, 2019. So the first one, March 29th, was part of the Natural Facts proper release show with very excellent runs through kind of the best tracks off of Natural Facts. Not a ton of jamming at that point. Total Yang, which is probably my favorite Garcia People song, jams pretty hard, goes into like a 12-minute jam. One thing I will say, just kind of as a side note, the first Garcia People show I heard was 7/29/18, where they played for like 25-ish minutes, one step behind in Hanging On. These like early Garcia People sets from 2019 or 2018 were very loose, very heavy on jamming. And it's really astounding to me how year's end, specifically the December 28th, 2018 show, or December 22nd, 2018 show from Union Pool, there's suddenly this like way tighter rock band, and you hear it on March 29th. The opening part of this show is just like very tight psychedelic rock. The second half of this show features Chris Forsyth on guitar, Ryan Jewell on drums, and a 60+ minute segment of music that reads Technotop into the Cavalry Cross, which I believe is a Richard Thompson cover, into the other one. And it might be my favorite hour of music in all of 2019.
That was a bombshell. That was like just dropped on 2019, that show.
Yeah.
That's like a legendary New Blues show.
I was so sad to say goodbye to March 2019 because it began with the Riley Walker, Ryan Jewell, Steve Gunn trio show from New Blue, or from Union Pool, part of Riley's residency. And then it ended with this set. And it was just like before quarantine, when all we had was Twitter Tuesday nights to hang out with each other and talk about music. These were like moments where I would log on like after putting my kid down and just be like, holy shit, what is happening? Like everybody's freaking out about this great music. So one of my favorite memories from last year. And then the latter, just for good measure, was the kickoff show to their New Blue residency in October. Chris Forsyth had a September residency. Garcia Peoples had an October residency. Add this to Riley Walker's Union Pool residency in March, and you have 12 nearly perfect shows of 2019. I remember this show appeared on Archive the next day. I think it was Thursday night shows that they did. Dave and I got to Nashville on Friday, October 4th. We ate a lot of food. We podcasted a lot. We were having like one of my favorite weekends of all time. And I remember getting back. We were also watching the Nationals figure out how to become a World Series team. I remember getting back to the hotel. We were in a very crappy motel that worked perfectly, and even if it didn't, and throwing this on my phone, and it just brings back really fantastic memories. I would kill to do like a weekend like that again right now. You've got a 13-minute Feel So Great opener, 2 wild jams that showcase their tightness and kind of the loose jamming that really defines Garcia Peoples at their best. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to be I'm gonna post the shows that we talked about here, and Brian Whitley, one of our favorite people in the world, who filmed that October 10th One Step Behind. He held his freaking phone for 50 minutes to capture it all. Like, didn't even say, okay, like my hands are tired. Like, kept fucking filming it. Amazing. Thank you. I had forgotten about this, but yeah, 329 was supposed to be Riley Walker. He had to back out for some health-related reasons, and Chris Forsyth stepped up last minute, and you got that magic at the end of it. So it was really, really special moment. Really fantastic stuff here. So Garcia Peoples, if you are hanging with us and you have not checked out Garcia Peoples, please do so. I posted the shows that we talked about here. These are kind of a great starting point, and I highly recommend you spend some time digging into this fantastic young band. And with that, before we go, we want to just talk one more. So important right now, more important than perhaps ever, to be repping new music. There continues to be new music coming out. If we ever get to a Friday where there's no new albums coming out, it's going to be a very, very sad event. So until then, we are going to do everything we can to push new music onto you guys. Josh, what is your new album that you recommend?
The new one I recommend actually was released yesterday. It is Kendra Amelie and Riley Walker, Papaya and a Houndstooth. I don't know the background behind when it was recorded. I would imagine it was possibly recorded in the last month just by, exchanging tapes and recordings through back and forth between each other. Kendra Amelie is a great musician out of Milwaukee. She's played with Garcia Peoples before. I think she opened one of the New Blue shows during their residency.
I was there.
And
She was good.
Oh, nice. And she's also played with them, I think, in one of Garcia Peoples' trips out to Milwaukee. And I'm pretty sure, at least last time I checked, if you find Garcia Peoples on Spotify, there's actually the Milwaukee Jam, which is a 10 or 15-minute jam with Kendra Amelie.
Awesome thing.
Yeah. Sounds like Mogwai. It's great.
And I'm sure listeners of your podcast are very familiar with Riley Walker, one of my favorite musicians these days.
Yeah.
I'd best describe this LP as just drone, atonal, and weirdness. It's out there. It's loud. It kind of scares my dogs, but that's okay. So I listen to it on headphones. I've been listening to it a lot over the past couple of days. And since the pandemic started, and I've been listening to more music probably than ever, which says a lot. A lot of what I've just been turning to is just kind of, comfort music for me.
Yeah.
I've been listening to hours and hours of The Dead.
Yeah.
Each day. I mean, before the pandemic, I'd listen to an hour or two of The Dead. I'm sometimes listening to two or three Dead shows a day now. The National, Wilco. But I also need to balance that out with just kind of weirder, more out music. And this really fits the bill. It's just a great palate cleanser between comfort music. And if you just want to hear something that's out there and loud and noisy and, weird music for weird times, download this. It's on Bandcamp. I think it's, basically whatever you want to pay, you pay for it, and highly recommended.
Yeah, that is, it's on my list. I have not yet gotten to it, but it is something based on what my listening habits are and kind of everything that you touched on there. I know it's gonna be something that has an impact for me. So I'm gonna cue that up here this evening. My record I want to talk about is Imaginary Softwoods, Annual Flowers in Color. If we can get, if any listeners are fans of the trio Emeralds, please state yourself right now, because they're one of my favorite groups from the late 2000s. So this is the first release under the name of this former Emerald synth drone master, John Elliott, since 2011 self-titled LP. It's wild because you compare him to his former bandmates. Mark McGuire, the guitarist, has increasingly gone new age, but he releases stuff on like a monthly basis. Steve Housechild has kind of these like faux dance aggressive records that come out. Elliott's music under Imaginary Softwoods is the most similar to the brilliance of the band Emeralds from their run in the later 2000s. The group was a trio that mastered synths and drones and late night, just like zone out music. 40 releases. Many of them were just blog releases. Like I have something from them just called Side A, Side B. It's 50 minutes from 2009. It will never not blow my mind. Every time I put it on, I absolutely love it. And then they all went solo in 2012. An Emeralds reunion of note would show the true colors of late aughts blog zone heads. We got On the Ellipse 79, Emeralds, Mark McGuire, Steve Housechild fan here. I love that. This is a band that made Fantasy Tour in 2009 and 2010 a good place to be. There were people repping this band in between claiming that Fish was never going to be good again. And it helped to shape me as a listener and as a critic as well. This record here, Annual Flowers in Color, something that John Elliott's been working on for close to a decade. I'd compare it in that way to Ryan Jewell's Moss's work, in that it took far longer to complete than it should, simply because work is essential for musicians, and sometimes the project closest to heart takes a back seat. And this kind of took a back seat for him, but there's a lot that he's added on to. In many ways, the heavy drone jams that Emeralds were known for, see 2010's Does It Look Like I'm Still Here, held Elliott back from showcasing his full brilliance. In addition, tapes from this record first surfaced in 2016. In total Emeralds fashion, nothing can ever officially be released. And then it was put out this spring for a vinyl release. Some tracks are trimmed back from that 2016 release. Others are removed completely. There are these 11-minute zone outs that play like the best parts of Does It Look Like I'm Still Here, fused with laid-back contemplative synth gems. Ultimately, it's a very gorgeous springtime release that showcases continued deliverables from the larger Emeralds family. They are one of my favorite trios of the last decade. I would love to hear the three of them get back together here, but hearing John Elliott's Imaginary Softwoods Annual Flowers in Color is enough for me at this point in time. So Dave, what do you got?
I've got a record that I just started listening to yesterday, but I think it's going to stay with me quite a bit. This is a New York City band called Peel Dream Magazine, and the album's called Agitprop Alterna, and it's on the Slumberland label. So if something is on Slumberland, you can assume it's probably low to mid-fi and kind of jangly and poppy. This is sort of, but really I like this record a lot because this band is basically My Bloody Valentine meets early Stereo Lab. So what you get is like the blissed out shoegaze of My Bloody Valentine with kind of like the Motoric 4 on the floor chug, and Farfisa organ for early Stereo Lab. So really two great tastes that I love, and they taste good together. But because it's like Slumberland, probably the most notable band on that label recently was the Pains of Being Pure at Heart, who no longer exist. But they're very big on stuff that is both like fuzzy and poppy and upbeat. And all that applies here through the lens of shoegaze and sort of the Motoric chug. So I think this is Peel Dream Magazine. Not the greatest name. I have to imagine maybe that's a reference to the legendary British tastemaker John Peel. But yeah, so far I think I like a lot what I'm hearing so far. So I'm curious to see where it's going to go.
There we go. We shared all those records with you guys in the comments section, so check them out. We always try to showcase something a little bit diverse. Sometimes we go with big records like we did last week, but other times we try to give you guys some stuff that's under the radar a bit. So before we wrap up, I want to give one quick shout out to my hat, which is of the Red-Headed Stranger, one of my favorite restaurants of all time. Greatest breakfast tacos, chili cheeseburger, tater tots,
Miso.
burritos, great miso, awesome cocktail project. I say it because tomorrow the workers at that restaurant are going back to work to open a takeout only spot in East Nashville. If any of our viewers are in East Nashville, please go there. If you have any friends or family, send them to the Red-Headed Stranger. Really awesome, honest work from a chef, Brian Weaver, who we had on our show, who really cares about the local economy, really cares about utilizing local farms, all to make the music or to make the food that is resonant within his overall childhood. So fantastic stuff. We spent a lot of time hanging there when we were in Nashville, and cannot recommend it enough. Go to the Red-Headed Stranger. They open up for takeout on May 1st.
We had 3 meals there.
Yeah, and I would have had 4.
Yeah. Is that going to be at the Red-Headed Stranger, or there's like a different?
It's going to be out there. Yeah, they're opening up their takeout window.
Okay. God, that's, yeah, if you happen to be in Nashville, that is, my God, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that. That's really good.
So on that, Josh, thank you so much for hanging with us, man. I think this is the first time we sat down and did this since we went through all of the Wilco albums a couple years back.
Thanks for having me.
Episode
Yeah,
17?
man, we need to do this again. This was awesome,
Absolutely.
man. So for everyone out there, we have a new episode dropping on Tuesday, April 28th, episode 96. We have another close friend who joins us on this episode to I'll just come out with that. I don't want to leave the surprise here. We're fucking excited about this. One of Dave's close friends, Dr. Kevin Finkel, is an anesthesiologist at Hartford Hospital. He is working the front lines of COVID-19 in Hartford, Connecticut. He's a huge fish fan, really good friend of the pod. And we have him on to talk about a really awesome jam, but more importantly, just to learn about his experience and hear how we can help anyone who is in that position right now, and to try to celebrate him as much as possible for his work right now, which is just super impressive. And from where I'm sitting, quite terrifying. So quite a bit of pride with what's coming there.
Yeah, I think that's great. We love to have Kevin on. He's was excited to come on, excited to kind of take his mind off of the day-to-day. So that comes out Tuesday, in addition to we're talking about quite an interesting jam on that Tuesday as well. So that's comes out Tuesday, April 28th, episode 1996. Otherwise, I think until we don't have to do this anymore, we're probably going to be back next Sunday at 8 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we'll be back next Sunday. And we got 4 planned episodes right now, plus a bunch that are in the works into the summer, because I don't think that we're going to be covering Fish Tour.
Probably not.
We've got a full band deep dive that's coming out in early May. We've got another awesome jam that we're covering in late May with a really good friend. And then we're doing our top albums the first half of 2020. Followed by episode 100, which
March to 100,
which is we are in the works on a very special episode that we're stoked to unveil and share with you guys. We'd encourage you guys, as always, continue following Osiris Media. There's many more live streams, great podcast episodes, great shows coming out. And then, we will be going live here next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you want to hear a particular show, please go ahead and tweet at us. Let us know. Otherwise, I will leave you guys with health, happiness. Josh, hope all is well on your end. Thank you so much for hanging with us, man.
Yeah, take care, guys, and be well.
Thank you very much for hanging with us, Josh. It's much appreciated. Anyone who is in the comment section, watched on YouTube, we know that there are many, many ways to spend your indoors during quarantine. There's lots of Netflix, lots of Disney Plus. So thank you for choosing us. Really appreciate it. Makes what we're doing fun. And come back next Sunday at 8 o'clock. We'll hold Kumbaya. We'll hold hands. We'll sing Kumbaya. Some of us may drink craft lagers, and we will go beyond the pond.